This is American Top 40. I'm Shadoe Stevens, and we have arrived. That place where pop dreams are fulfilled, the number one song on the Billboard chart. And climbing into that top spot is only the third act from Ireland to hit number one. The first did it back in 1972 when he hit number one with Alone Again Naturally. From Waterford, he's Gilbert O'Sullivan. The second Irish act to hit number one did it twice in 1987. Those number ones were With or Without You and I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For, and they've become one of the world's biggest bands. From Dublin, they're U2. Well, now, a third Irish act follows U2 and Gilbert O'Sullivan to the top with her very first hit. The new number one song in the USA is by Sinead O'Connor from Dublin, Ireland. Nothing Compares to You. The new number one song, Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor, her first hit ever on the chart. And that's it, the big batch, the cream of the crop, the 40 most popular records in America straight from the official Billboard chart for the week ending April 21st, 1990. I'm Shadoe Stevens, you're listening to American Top 40, and we have arrived number one on the Billboard chart. And it's by a woman who may have been saved from a lifetime of trouble by music. This 23-year-old singer was born in Ireland, in the same hometown as U2, Dublin. She was one of 8 children. Her father was a barrister in the courts, a lawyer, and her mother was a dressmaker. But her parents separated when she was only 9, and her reaction was to rebel. So she took to the streets, where she became a shoplifter and somewhat of a con artist. While pretending to be collecting money for charity, she'd pocket as much as £100 a day. She says she did it for her mother, trying to make her happy, but instead, it landed her in trouble with the law. When she was 14, she was arrested for stealing shoes and sent to a school for troubled kids. And inside the same building was a hospice for the aged and dying. She told writer Pam Lambert if you were bad, they'd send you upstairs to sleep on the floor in the old folks' home. She described it as pitch black, where sick people lived in unsanitary conditions. It was awful. But it was also the turning point for her. To cope with it all, she picked up the guitar and learned to strum Bob Dylan songs. When she was 16, she was released and started singing in the streets, bus depots, and pubs of Dublin. Well, she eventually hooked up with a band, and that led to a solo record deal. Her first album 2 years ago, The Lion and the Cobra, received great reviews. And now her second album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, hits number one this week on the album chart, and it's given her the hit song that now spends a second week on top of the Billboard pop chart. The number one song in the USA again this week is Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor. I'm Shadoe Stevens. You're listening to American Top 40, coming to you this week from Walt Disney World. And here we are, the final destination on our star tours up the Billboard chart, the pop peak of Big Thunder Mountain, number one. And it just so happens it's by a woman who once recorded a Disney song for a special album. It was 2 years ago when a producer named Hal Wilner, who's been musical director of Saturday Night Live, put together this special project. Now, the idea was for different pop singers to record their interpretations of songs from Disney movies. The album was called Stay Awake, and the tracks included Disney favorites sung by stars like James Taylor, Ringo Starr, Aaron Neville, and Bonnie Raitt. The album also included an Irish singer in this week's countdown. She recorded a song from Disney's 1937 classic, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. See if you recognize her voice.
Someday my prince will come.
That's a piece of Someday My Prince Will Come, originally from the Disney animated feature Snow White. Well, the woman who sang it on the album Stay Awake 2 years ago now has the number one song in the USA for the 4th week in a row. Once again, the most popular song in the land is Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor. And now we're up to the woman who first made a name for herself in music because of the way she looked. When she made her debut 2 years ago, you couldn't miss her on the pages of magazines. There she was with her head shaved bald. No doubt about it, Sinead O'Connor had found a way to get your attention before you ever heard her music. But she had other reasons. She told Spin magazine at the time, my first record company kept telling me to wear high heels and stuff, but I just don't fit into that. People like Jody Watley and Madonna, they choose to be like that. I would never slag them for it, but what angers me is when I've got 7 or 8 record company men telling me what to wear. That's ridiculous. So Sinead's response was to go anti-glamour, so she cut off all her hair. It wasn't really intended as a publicity stunt. She said, "It actually makes me feel womanly because I feel natural." Well, even though Sinead said the whole look was for herself, there was definitely an effect on others. She says, "Cutting my hair turned out to serve a very useful purpose. I think it's good that there was a shocking element to the way I look. People expect to hear one thing, and what they do hear on record is completely different." Well, 2 years later, Sinead's hair is very short, but not completely cut off. And her recent #1 song is at number 7 this week on AT40. Here's Sinead O'Connor, and Nothing Compares to You. You've got the pulse of pop American Top 40 with the Shadoe. And now we're up to the recent #1 smash by the woman who decided to drop out of school to become a singer. It's just part of the story of 23-year-old Sinead O'Connor. 7 years ago, she was 16 years old, growing up around Dublin, Ireland. Her parents had divorced and she was living with her father. He sent her to a series of boarding schools, including one in Waterford, about 75 miles south of Dublin. Sinead had already discovered music and had started to play guitar and sing in pubs and coffee houses, so she decided to quit school and become a professional singer. But first, she asked for her father's permission. He said no. So one day in the middle of school, without saying anything to anyone, she just walked out and disappeared. Sinead's father told writer Michael Gilmore, "I was up a wall. I didn't know where she was. When she did come home, it was plain that she'd made up her mind." And so had Mr. O'Connor. He said Sinead could quit regular school for music school. So he sent her to the College of Music in Dublin. He says, "I was hoping that she would get some classical education in singing. She also studied piano. So she's not a naive composer, she knows music." And that's how Sinead O'Connor, with a little help and understanding from her dad, made singing her career. Her recent #1 song is at number 10 this week on American Top 40. Nothing Compares to You.
Hits from coast to coast.